To review all of the papers, we have the UK editor of The Big Issue, Paul McNamee, and also the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Hello, our final run out this morning with you two. We've been talking, obviously, a lot about the tragic events taking place in the Middle East. What we haven't talked about yet, Dawn, is the role played by Iran in all of this.
Yes, no, absolutely. This is page 6 of the Telegraph, and they have done a roundup of what is happening around the world, the support for the Palestine people, not Hamas, the Palestine people, and strong condemnation of Israel's behaviour. It's obviously that is coming from a global position, but in particular in the Arab and the Muslim world. But Iran is the one I think that worries most people. They have organised, the state have organised rallies against this, and some of the rhetoric coming from that country, Sam, is particularly worrying, saying that, you know, they are going to hold Israel responsible over its war crimes, their words, not mine. And Tehran have warned that new fronts could open in the war, and we already know that Israel on its northern borders are facing attacks already. But astonishing pictures in the Telegraph of crowds from Baghdad, Iran, Lebanon, and Indonesia. Many of the Arab and Muslim countries around the world are uniting and saying, you know, we stand by Palestine. So it is pretty much a glow. And the pictures of the crowds in some of these places are quite astonishing.
What makes this story particularly complex in the reporting is obviously its wider context. And Paul, you've picked out an article in The Guardian which is really touching on just that.
Yeah, this is a piece from Jonathan Friedland, and I mean, obviously he writes incredibly emotional and brilliant
poignantly,
pieces all the time, but this particular, there's something measured about it, the way he takes us through, and he looks at the history of what the Jewish people face from pogroms. He one of the things he does is he looks at the line between what happened in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, both because it was on a scale like we're seeing with the Hamas invasion, but also because of what happened with Golda Meir after it, that she was she left government, she was voted out, which he sees happening with Netanyahu as well. He's very strong in his condemnation of how Netanyahu is governed. But what he also does is then looks through to where some of the things we've discussed earlier, and that is that Hamas is not the Palestinian people, that you can condemn Hamas for what they have done, as he says,
and still support
the Palestinian cause. He says that Hamas is not identical; it is a curse on the Palestinian cause. So I urge people to read this piece, because it tackles a lot of the difficult ground that we've tried to get around today with a lot of knowledge and lived experience. It's a great piece.
Yeah, and also a reminder that in 50 years there still has not been any real progress. Dawn, let's change gear. This is the story that just talking about it makes us itch. Tell us about this article in the Mirror.
That is everyone's reaction to that. We were just discussing the stories outside, and I was telling Paul about this story, and he goes, I'm starting to itch already. You've just said the same thing, right? This is the Mirror. This story's been around for a while now, but it's about the invasion of bedbugs. But what makes this story, gives it more legs, no pun intended, is that the bedbugs are coming from France, who have had this infestation. And obviously, you know, the French and the English are always like joking about one another.
We're not controlling our borders.
We're not controlling it. They're coming over in those boats, stealing our jobs, etc., etc. But pest control firms are being inundated with calls about bedbugs. And evidently this week alone, there's been a 65% increase in infestations. And this is a bit that I love, right? Okay. They're only the size of apple pips. They're tiny.
But they're big enough that you can see them, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're not going to kill you, okay? It's a bit itchy.
I wouldn't want them in my bed.
Depends how many of them you get, I suppose.
How many do you want, Paul?
And where you get them.
Well, exactly. Well, actually, but the fun part of this story, and there is a fun part, is there is actually a company called Bed Bugs Limited, based in London. And it's like, what, can I order some?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they come
for
and
a neighbour you don't
they
like?
they come and support your bed bugs out. Basically, they don't deliver.
I
them
should
just
say
in case.
there are other pest control.
But once they get into your home, they are a nightmare to get rid of, and you literally have to get every piece of furniture out, have it, what do you call it, chemically cleaned, and then go back in. So they're really hard to get hold of, but they're not gonna kill you, Paul. But you can order some if you want some.
I'll pass.
And they're French bed bugs.
Just quick, we've got a minute, Paul.
Okay.
Tell us about this article that's caught your attention about somebody we all seem to like, Keith Richards, of course, of the Rolling Stones.
This young buck, this young
buck.
trying to make his way,
all the odds, hasn't he?
still around. And the Stones are having a moment. The new record, Hackney Diamonds, is coming next week. The tracks are...
Apparently it's really good.
It is fantastic. It feels like they're back on... from 50 years ago. It feels like Exile on Main Street in places. But he's given an interview to The Sun. There's not a lot of great new reveals from Keith, but the fact, I think, that he is still there, considering everything that he has been through in his life, is quite remarkable. And one thing that caught my eye in it, he said he still speaks to Charlie Watts, who died a couple of years ago. He still has moments when he speaks to him. Charlie, I think, is on a couple of the tracks because it was recorded before his death. But it's always worth hearing what Keith has to say.
Yeah, indeed. I remember Jerry Hall always used to say, I never told my kids not to do drugs, I just used to invite Keith Richards over. But I think he's cleaned up his act, hasn't he? He will certainly be looking out.
He likes a drink still, though, evidently. I was so relieved to read that, because I don't want the Rolling Stones drinking green, healthy fruit juices.
No. We like the bad boy image. Anyway, you are watching Sky News Breakfast.